Welcome to California Edition. My name is Brad Pomerance. We are joined by Sandra Fluke. She is a nominee for the California State Senate in District number 26, which is where?
Thank you so much for having me,
course.
for starters. District 26 is a fantastic district. It's on the west side of Los Angeles, so it stretches from Hollywood to Pacific Palisades and then down the coast to Palos Verdes.
Tough life for you.
A beautiful,
right.
beautiful district, one that's very, very important to protect environmentally. Because if you think about it, it essentially is the unification of the coastal beach towns and the Santa Monica Mountains.
The current occupant of that seat is Ted Lieu. He's running for Congress,
That's
so
right.
You are running against another individual. You're not running against an incumbent. It's an open seat.
It's an open seat. That's right.
I want to talk about you for a moment, though. I mean, your name precedes you, obviously. Sandra Fluke is a well-known name nationally as a result of some media attention you received when a conservative talk show host named Rush Limbaugh said some unkind things about you after you testified on Capitol Hill regarding reproductive freedom.
Yes.
So talk to me about how running for a state Senate seat in California, how that is for you as kind of a national rock star, if you know what I'm saying.
I completely eschew the rock star label.
But you get what I'm saying.
I get
in
what
quotes.
You're asking. Yes.
In quotes.
You know, for me, what I really try to convey to voters and to everyone else in this process is that I don't think that the media attention that I received in 2012 has anything whatsoever to do with what qualifies me for being a state senator and why I would be the best senator for this district.
Tell us.
The last 10 years of policy experience that I have, working specifically at the state level, diving into legislation on a whole range of issues, the reproductive justice issues that I'm known well for, as well as other access to health care, employment concerns, worker protections, unemployment levels, education affordability, poverty issues, criminal justice reform. That's the work that's important in this race. But the one advantage for the voters here is that often when you have a candidate for a state level office who hasn't been in office at that level before, they haven't had the chance to see what your leadership is like in the public spotlight, what your character is like when tested. And I'm able to actually say to voters, you know, I think that I have conducted myself in a way that I hope would make folks proud to have me represent them. And they've seen that regardless of what the consequences are for me personally, I'm willing to stand my ground and fight. Even if it's not popular, I'm willing to conduct myself in a way that is civil and appropriate, but draws the line.
It is remarkable how you were literally thrust into the national spotlight from out of nowhere. I mean, people testify in Congress all the time.
Oh, absolutely.
And so when Rush Limbaugh made that statement about you, wow, I mean, you must have been shell-shocked for a whole host of reasons.
Yeah, it was certainly not something that I anticipated or was seeking out in any way. I'd been working on this particular policy around the Affordable Care Act and insurance coverage for a number of years, along with a lot of other folks in that process. But for me, what it offered was an opportunity to really shine the spotlight on some of the challenges that we're facing in many of the state legislatures around the country, as well as in Congress, and to get people more activated and involved. Because that's what my policy career has really been all about, is getting people connected and involved in these discussions. And oftentimes they don't have enough information, they don't realize what's happening. And so I was just so proud of the way the country came together and really drew a line, took a stand, and said, this is not what we're looking for in our public discourse, and we do want to protect women's health.
And it's interesting you mentioned that, because as you know, recently there was a decision that came down that's known as the Hobby Lobby decision. It's an arts and crafts store that did not want to provide certain forms of birth control to its employees as mandated by the Affordable Care Act. And the Supreme Court ruled in favor of Hobby Lobby. Now, I know you're running for state and not federal, but I would like to get a sense from you, what do you make of the decision? And can California do something to, quote, circumvent the decision if that's the position that you would take?
Well, so I am very concerned about the court's decision on a whole number of levels. I think this opens the door to weakening our protections for religious liberty, as well as for employees and customers who need non-discrimination provisions and employment protections in the process. Because this decision can go much further than just women's health care. Women are going to lose access to their health care as a result of this, some women, but it can go into to other types of health care and other employment protections.
I would wonder, as I told you, I used to be a lawyer, I'm inactive right now. I mean, I would think that one could say they have a religious objection to someone that's gay and lesbian. And if you look at the Hobby Lobby decision, it would seem like you could take Hobby Lobby to that level.
Yeah, I think there are some ways that you can get there, which is why it's really important that we pass things like the Employment Non-Discrimination Act, ENDA, at the federal level. But here in California, the good news is that we were actually one of the states that our legislation was a model for the Affordable Care Act's provisions. So we already have protections requiring employer-provided insurance programs as part of compensation to cover birth control access.
So here in California, Hobby Lobby doesn't apply per se.
Well, it applies, but we have some legislative protection already, because Hobby Lobby was about federal legislation. So without getting into all of the details.
It's okay.
But what's important for folks to know is that we do sometimes tend to think that we already have all of the reproductive rights provisions on the books that we need, and that's not the case.
I would think that in California. I mean, we're California, but not necessarily.
And we're ahead of a lot of the rest of the country, but there are still some things we need to improve. We need to more fully respect our poorest sisters' decision-making around their families in terms of our public assistance policies, and we need to make sure that medical providers are not turning women away when that medical provider chooses not to provide a service without giving them any other referral, any other option for where to go for reproductive health care. So there's a number of things we can improve upon, and I think that's our responsibility to the states where we're being dragged backwards.
I want to speak about an issue facing California, and that deals with the drought. Like you said, you presumably, should you be victorious, will represent coastal California.
Yep.
And as we speak today, while Southern California is not being as hard hit by the drought as other parts of the state, we know that the State Water Resources Board has mandated or directed cities and municipalities to impose fines for excessive water use or inappropriate water use. Where do we go with this, assuming you move forward?
I'm concerned about some of the fines because I think it can have a really regressive impact on low-income households. That said, I really do believe in education and helping to get people to conserve more, making them aware of the consequences of that behavior. With our water policy, I would like to see us invest in some local solutions around recycling as well as rainwater conservation or rainwater collection. Excuse me. So in my district, the Hyperion treatment plant, we're pumping 250 million gallons a day of water into the Santa Monica Bay. We could be reusing that for gray water purposes, for irrigation, for watering of lawns. Those kind of recycling programs could go a long way.
At the same time, we know that recent surveys suggest that coastal California or Southern California hasn't been the best stewards as it relates to water conservation. Our use has been up.
But we're still a lot better than the rest of the state.
Right, but fair enough, but what
it's not competition.
Yeah, no, fair enough, but what can we do to really explain to folks that this situation is traumatic? I mean,
it is dire, yes.
We are the hottest first 6 months of a year ever. 5 degrees warmer than the 20th century average. I mean, we are dried like a prune right now.
Well, we're already seeing some action. For example, you'll see State Senator Hannah Beth Jackson on the airwaves with her PSAs talking about what we can do to conserve. She's one of my supporters. I'm glad to see her out there doing that. We can also be more clear with folks around the days of the week recommendations for which days you should use any watering of your lawn whatsoever, and bring together the local municipalities so that people are getting a clear recommendation, because when our media markets cross over, it can be confusing for folks. So there's a lot we can do around education toward conservation.
Do you feel as if in our final moments that Sacramento's coming together on this issue? Are we polarized or are we coming together?
Well, I think I'm disappointed that we didn't get to the right place on the water bond, and I think we may still, but time is pretty short. So I'm hoping we will be able to make some more progress.
Her name is Sandra Fluke. She is a nominee for the California State Senate. My name is Brad Pomerance, and this is California Edition.